Good afternoon and welcome to What's New in Revit 2015. Today I'll be going through the Revit Structure and also a little bit of the Revit Architectural and Revit One Box new features. Today's presentation I'll just be quickly flicking through some PowerPoint information provided mostly by Autodesk. As you can see here, the grayed out ones I won't be covering too much as there's no major improvements compared to 2014 for those using Revit structures. First of all, some of the new features. There's one called sketchy lines. This allows architects as an example to create sort of preliminary looking drawings. Next sort of tools, documentation tools. There's enhancements for schedules for material takeoffs, allowing just greater flexibility in creating different schedules, especially through the filters and sorting and grouping. Also available now is with views on sheets between activate and deactivate, and also view references, being able to re-reference an existing view. And continuing on, assembly code settings are now available through settings throughout the project rather than being hard coded back under your C program data. Also available now are the hidden lines. These now allow greater flexibility to actually see a lot of the hidden work between 3D views, and also can be used from a structural steel elements. Once you look at these, you'll probably find these very useful, as mentioned, especially when it comes to steelwork. Revision improvements, a couple of features. One is the deletion of revisions for those that are using the Autodesk revision scheduling, but more importantly for revision clouds, now having the ability to control the art length and also control the shapes, a little bit like what we could do originally in AutoCAD quite a few years ago. Also back with schedules, now having the ability to apply images. This is more probably aimed at MEP and architects, but you could be using this method also for other elements inside structures, as in column schedules or just identifying other elements. IFC linking is now available. In the past we've always had to create a Revit model from an IFC, but now we can link in directly the IFC file. This also can be controlled through the Manage Links dialog box. So as you can see, Manage Links dialog box, we now have an option down the bottom right called Add. Allows us to take us directly to importing if it's a Revit IFC, CAD or DWF or Points Cloud files. Pinned elements, a enhanced option. Now will not delete elements when elements have been pinned. Prior versions, the elements still deleted, only a warning was applied. So a combination of using the new 2015 feature and also the 14 feature of being able to actually select pinned elements should now give you greater flexibility and understanding that not everything will be deleted accidentally. Family parameters, a major improvement here. Basically we can now order our parameters in either alphabetical or move them up and down as we see suit, rather than some unlogical manner from previous versions. Also with families, we can now create our own custom parameters as before, but now we can actually apply a customized tooltip. This can be used for training methods throughout your company. Tag improvements, structural foundation. There are now some tags that are available through foundations, so you can create basically a top and bottom elevation tag for your elements. So on the structural side, there have been enhanced analytical models, however nothing extraordinary compared to previous versions, so we won't be covering too much of these details. Further details are available on the internet through Autodesk website. For those things that we do need to look at, reinforcement of parts. So parts are now becoming more of a normal situation inside projects, now having the ability to actually reinforce these. So again, ends up being a host of elements, so it can save a lot of time. The numbering automation customization, so now we're starting to have a bit more control on how we want to display our rebar information for those that are using rebar, through either schedules or through tagging methods. Also single fabric sheet placement, having now the ability to place each sheet manually. Again, very handy when it comes to parts. So if you're using precast walls, you'll be able to place sheets, individual sheets for small panels, but also just having the ability to place these on any radial positions as per the picture. Presentation of rebar, very important upgrade that they've got now presentation tool options, just the ability to either show single bars or first and last or all bars, but you do now have more control. It's an improvement. Jury's still out if it's still the way forward for overall documentation, but it is better than what it was. And again, enhanced multi-rebar annotation, grouping and sorting annotation updates, just complementing just all the new features just to make everyone's life easier if you are using rebar. And one of the very important changes is the steelwork when it comes to location line. All of a sudden now we've got basically a center line, which is location line of our steel members. Also graphical representation we can now modify a little bit better. Through this we can use shape handles and snap improvements. So this can be either top, middle or bottoms or sides. Also the ability to modify the offsets graphically, which is your Z and XY offsets. Also the switch join option, just to control how a steel member will join, if it joins to a centroid or to faces of elements. In the past it automatically locked onto things where it may not have been applicable. So these have been greatly improved. Also under the steelwork, under structural sections, through your catalogue files we can now apply some of our analytical information. So this will sort of start giving us greater quantities and also information for other programs. Also allow us to apply a different profile shape called like I sections or U sections. This can be used inside schedules as need be. So we will now switch over to looking at live Revit.
Good, thank you. Okay, all right, so the first one we're going to look at is sketchy lines. Okay, so at the moment, so if I look at this structure here, so I'll just go to a quick 3D view. Okay, so I'll just create a 3D view of my section 12. Let's change this to be hidden line. So I'm deliberately going to sort of step through the processes. This allows the ability for those that haven't done any of this information to pick up additional skill sets. So I'm just turning off the analytical for now. Okay, so currently looks pretty normal. Now if I go up to the View tab, under the graphics, we've got a selection button here, which is the display options. If I go down now, we've got the new option here called sketchy lines. So if I go enable sketchy lines, and if I now change the jitter, so I'll do 5, and extensions is how far the line will go past. So if I now press apply, you can see what it's doing. So if I change this one here to be further, you can see the extension pass. Right, so softer jitter is what they call it. So my advice is, if you want to play with this and have a go, I'll be creating a view template, sketchy lines. Already got one made, I'll call it number 2, apply and OK. So now having the ability to just apply a normal view template and then applying the sketchy lines view template. very quickly. Okay, so that's the sketchy line option. Under the schedules, the improvements in the schedules. Okay, so first of all, I'll go to, I've got a multi-category schedule created. This is material takeoff. Okay, so under the fields, no new enhancements in there. However, under the filter options, I think there was only ever 4 before. We now have 8 options through filtering. Under the sorting and grouping, where we've got grand totals down here, we now have the ability to actually have the naming convention. So this is new, okay, and then pressing OK, and it gives you the ability from a titling point of view. So just reinforcing the other options coming through, just from 2014, everyone was aware that at any stage you could always modify the shading, so applying colours. Okay. Besides that, nothing else is new, so you still got all your appearances for your elements. So that's the first part of the scheduling. Now, the other part is to do with images. If I just go to a structural framing schedule, if I go to the available fields, instantly we've got images and type images. So type images, that's this one here, so that'll be set back up in the family. And then you've also got images which are instance-based. So once this has been set up, you can then apply an image. So an example, I've got a UB placed. So if I now go to my drawing sheet, as you can see, going down, and you can see the image coming through. So it'll give you the ability, if you're setting up your families, that you could technically have an image set up to start reading some of the additional parameters. So as I said, it's probably more services and architectural orientated, but it might give you options in structures how to display information. Also, under the schedules is some new options for walls. So if I create a new schedule and quantities, scrolling down to walls, apparently there's now more options for base offsets, top offsets, and constraints. Whereas these were not always available through the 2014 and prior versions. So having these, again, as we know, using schedules gives us the ability to actually drive the model through the schedule itself. Okay, the assembly codes. So under the Manage tab, under the additional settings, down the bottom we've got assembly codes. We can now specify a location. So in the past we always had to actually come and find this location, which was always under program data, and always keep the same name and just modify the information. So at least now, which is good, we've got more options. So, okay. Some of the view options. So in the past, 2014, we could always double click a view and that would have activated a view. So in AutoCAD days, working inside the viewport, so this allows us to modify whatever we need to do. So in the past, we've always had to right click to activate view. Now we can double click on the out and it deactivates the view. So it's double clicking in, double clicking out. Again, little things, but little things often save some time. Okay, hidden lines. So this is one of the big new features. So what I'll do, I'll just go back to that 3D view. Well, actually, I might have one here. Yep. Right, I'll just apply the view template to get back to just normal line work. Okay, so that's my normal view. So I'll also just turn off just my section box. So now in the views, we've got an option down here just below the show discipline is show hidden lines. So if I now go show all, I should start to see a few hidden lines coming through. Okay, So this is where anywhere on the website that they're showing you everything in 3D, everything looks good. Where it could possibly be used is in the following. So a little bit more realistic to what you might be doing out there. Okay, if I now come along and draw some steel members, so I'll just draw a steel beam in. That's per normal. So just using the family. Yep. So as we all know, unless you spend a lot of time modifying your own families, which I've in the past, any steel member that was on an angle, so I'll just do the quick method. So normally I'd use a reference plane. If I change that, all your hidden lines in the past would have disappeared. So I'll just change that. Okay. So now, with these options here, so anytime if I, so in the past, it would have looked like by discipline, you would have seen the hidden lines. Now with this option here, you have the ability to at least start showing all the hidden lines. So even if I rotated this member here using the cross-section rotation, so if I use this at 45 as an angle, you can start to get the true hidden line and actual line work of what it needs to do. So just in that method there, you know, hopefully that's going to sort of create a little bit of ease on the steelwork for everyone. Okay, the revision improvements. So what I'll do, I'll just go back to a drawing sheet. Okay, so under the View tab, coming across to Revisions tab. Okay, so in the past, if I just apply to a sheet, so the new one here is the delete option. So at any time I can delete some of these revisions, which is good. Also, while you're in here, down the bottom right, you've got arc length. So if I leave that at 10, I can now, when I now go and create a revision, that's that one there, annotate. If I go to revision cloud, I now get the draw box. So if I now just go rectangle, so as I said, long time coming, catching up to the AutoCAD version. So that's been set with an arc of 20. So if I come back and change this to be 10, so tighter, as you can see. So just that little improvement. And as you know, also with the 2014 features onwards, any of the editing modes, the pink lines, you can always just double click. You don't have to always go to edit. So if I create another one as a circle, so very quickly. Okay, IFCs. So under the Insert tab, this is where we now have the IFC link. So just the ability to insert IFC or different IFC types accordingly. Obviously, with anything that's been linked in, we've always had Manage Links. Now, obviously, IFC is a new tab, now that we have that. But also, down the bottom right here, we've got Add. So you can technically run everything through, which is now import a file. So at this point here, so if I go to IFC tab and go Add, it's basically the same as going up to the Insert. So you're not stuck on always cancelling and going back to Insert and Link. So that one was Manage Links, and going through these points. Okay, one of the, as mentioned about the pinned elements, so if I just select my floor here, okay, currently it's pinned, so if I unpin this, and I could delete as normal, so I'll just undo. Now with the pins, selecting the element and pinning. Now when I try and delete, I'm now getting the element will not be deleted. So in addition to actually being able to select pin elements, you do have the ability down the bottom right from 14 on to be able to select or not select pin elements. So if I had that selected as do not select, at any stage I cannot select that element. I can select everything else that's not pinned, but I can't ever pick that. So the combination of knowing you have the pinned elements and knowing you can delete, also in addition to the link files, you could use a combination of these, anything that's linked in, to stop any accidental deletions. Okay, family parameters. So if I just go to where I've been working, well actually before I go to family parameters, I'll just actually look at some of the views and section tags. So if I create a section, meantime we could have always created a reference other view, which is fine, but now we have the ability, once it's done, we can always change that to be a different reference. So this is all new. Okay, so back to family parameters. So what I'll do here, I'll just select the UB and I'll go to edit family. And just on that, for those that hadn't used 14 and jumping straight to 15, or those that were in 14 weren't aware, don't forget under the options area, there was always a double click option to deactivate when double clicking families. Okay, so here we are back in the family mode. So it's still being family. So at any stage here, I now have the ability to move up or down. Or if I wish to do everything in alphabetical order, I can just go ascending or descending. So just those tools on their own for families, been a long time coming. Also, with families, okay, so if I was going to, excuse me, create my own family, test parameter, I'll just do as a text, stick it up in the data, an instance. I now have the ability down here called Tooltips. So if I go edit Tooltips, you've got 250 characters. This is the test for Tooltips. Selecting OK. If I now load this back into my project, overwrite. I now select my member. Okay, under the data area I'm looking for, it should be down the bottom. Here it is here. So when I'm hovering over it, hopefully you can all see this. It's come up with a tooltip. This is a test for tooltips. So you can use that as mentioned for training methods. So if you have a code for certain parameters, you can say L is length, W is width, so people aren't quite sure. Because if you don't add it, all it's going to do, as you can see at the moment, I'm just adding, basically hovering over it, and it just basically pops open what it is. Also back on the steelwork, so just completing the steelwork part. Okay, now just be aware, this member here, so this is classed as not the Australian version when I loaded this in. Loading this. Okay, so if I go back over here, this is the Australian version family. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, instantly you've got all these parameters in here, the structural analysis options. So just be aware that the Australian ones are different. Also, the final thing with the families here, under the family and category section, okay, just stumbled across this morning. I'm not sure if this was in 14, but if it's not, that's new, which is structural framing length round off. But also this one is new, structural section shape. So this basically brings up a predefined shape list. Haven't been able to find if this could be modified as yet, but knowing you've got that shape list. Okay, so obviously now if I go now to the create some steelwork framing schedule, okay, you can start to see I can pretty much bring up all my shapes. So I could actually start using, so if I bring up type, and then start using my filter as per usual. Not everything can be picked up through filter, but it does give you the ability at least through eye shapes. So, and back on the images that I was talking about. Down here, ID data, here's your type image. So this allows you to have predefined type images to suit different members. So that's the image one that comes through the schedule. Okay. So that's the steelwork. Now, some of the structural information to do with parts. So I'll just quickly go over to a sample here. So I'll just run through to ensure everyone is aware how to do parts. So I'll just create, first of all, a structural wall. So just creating this coming up. Turn it wall. Just moving my section up. For those that aren't aware, you can just hold control down and pick and drag for your sections. Okay, so selecting all my walls, having the ability now to go create parts. Trying again. Create parts. Then divide parts. There's many options, but at the moment I'll just do edit sketch. So I'll just create a part. I want a part there. I'd also like that to finish at that point there, which I'll clean up in a minute, and one through to there. And I might put one in there. Okay, so at any time these could have a 20 gap if I wish. I could also apply a division profile. Okay. Okay, but we won't be. Now the box one seems to be incorrect. So no, that's right. So finishing that off. So this very quickly creates individual parts, like for precast drawings. So at the moment I've got section 14. So to display the parts, which I should have shown you back here, at any time, about fifth one down, there's always parts visibility. If I change that to be just showing original, my wall will display. If I show both, you'll see the parts in the wall. So if I now go to my elevation, okay, so here I am here. So you can see the individual parts. So it allows you to create tags, not for individual panels. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select the original wall, so the hosted wall. Okay, so I'm going to now come back and I'm going to set up a rebar cover. I've got one predefined for a 200 wall, so I've set up to be 100. So this should now give me the ability, selecting now my part, and if I did, now with the reinforcement, because we can reinforce parts, but if I just do a single fabric sheet, now at the time here I'm going to place external, so this should be placing it about the external cover, as you can see. So if I just place that there, so that's all come through fine. If I now just grab my section here, let's copy one up. Excuse me. All right, as you can see, so it's come through set up ready in the 100 cover. So that's using the external location. So that's the ability to use single fabric sheets inside parts. Okay, other reinforcement options. If I just go to this is a beam elevation. Okay, this will be my rebar. Okay, so this is just a series of ligatures. So if I just go this cross section so you can see what it looks like. So typical beam reinforcement as what we've been able to do for a while. Maximum spaces 300 centres if need be. I'll come back to the rebars in a minute. So now though, however, we do have the ability, once selecting your reinforcement, up in the presentation option. So we've got some options up here. One is show all. I could show first and last. I could show the middle. Or I could show the selected. So this way I'll be able to actually go and pick the one I wish. And finish. And as you can see. So it's an improvement. It's heading in the right direction, which is good. And again, just with the beam sections, if you're placing basically a series of beam, okay, in this case here I'll just do fixed number. So I'll do, say, this time 4 of. Okay, so as you can see, so I'll just place this here. So this was an improvement just with the 2013, I think it might have come through with the rebar, how it won't actually go outside the cage. So placing that there now. Creating a tag. Add the tag to it. Creating different tag types. Now these 4s and 1s at the end, this has all got to do with what they call the rebar number. Okay, so you can start using this as part of if you're going to start using 3D Rio and scheduling. I'll come back to all the questions in a minute, guys. So I'll just keep going through at the moment. Okay, so that's the rebar improvements. Okay, one final thing which I did forget to show on the steel beams. I'll go back to my steel beams, one called location lines. So there's a new under your graphics. So at the moment I've got my beam here. Okay, so this is just the improvements inside the project. Okay, so the first one, if I go to structural framing, I've now got a new one here called location lines. Okay. So if I do wireframe, you can start to see there's my location line coming through. Okay, so now the other new features, so we've gone through what's in the families. Now inside the project, once the memo has been applied, if I select my beam here, we've got some new options. First of all, we've got some justification options. So up towards the top right, if I select justification, you can sort of see the options. At the time, we never had a graphical view. We always could at any stage select a member, and at the moment you can see this case here, it was Z was right, Y was right, and top. So according to what it is, I might actually come over here, see if I've got a center one. Yep. So if I change, there it is there. So everything's origin, origin. So if I now go justification, I can now change to be the top. And what that's actually doing now is essentially changing this over here. So just a lot easier graphically. Also, in addition to that, you've got the offsets. We always had these offset values here. You can now actually just do it graphically. So if I did a Y offset, and I want to move it across 75, happens to be at that point there. Okay, so that now comes across. So that's a good improvement. Also with steel beams, if I now select this member here, my joining member come in, I can change, if I just go back to reset. Right, if I select this member and go change reference, at the moment its reference is back to the point. If I change it to that face there, now you won't see much improvement if I change that to coarse. Okay, it's back to how it is as per the normal setup. If I change reference and if I pick, say, that face, you can see that coming through. So knowing then you've got the ability of going to the cope option. Changes back to coarse. Again, still maintains your offsets. So that's quite a big improvement. So there's been a lot of time spent on the steelwork improvements. So just with the new members, with the justifications and changing the references, should make everyone's life easy. Now, one of the big improvements, as mentioned in the slides, is basically reverting back to the drags. So if I was actually drawing a steel member in at the moment, okay, it's back to having basically your drag point, but also now having the ability to leave the drag point as it is and drag the member back. So as per previous versions. So there's been, as I said, considerable improvements with the steelwork. Also with a lot of these, you can, if I go back over here, at any stage, wherever you do see these joints, these dots, the drag points, if I right click, if I go disallow join, you've pretty much now got a free method of where you want this member to be. Okay. So if I now go back to rejoin, that's the dimension. I can go back and rejoin it. Allow join, and it'll come back. So just the right click on the blue dot, which is the drag, will now give you more flexibility. Okay, and then one of the other final features is, as simple as this is, selecting, say, a series of lines, doesn't really matter. This can be elements, does not make any difference. Knowing you've now got the trim extend multiple, selecting the boundary, and then selecting a crossing window, and they can all extend. So back to, again, a bit more AutoCAD based, but still does make a difference. So. Okay, so that's all I had to go through. So that pretty much covers most of the slides. Now, I've just got a question here from Chris. What are the shapes for? So I'll just go back over to my reinforcement. If you're talking about these, I would be assuming. So these basically can be used for if you're ever doing any sort of government work like main roads or RTA. They often have different shape types. So it might be called a shape type HT. So it's just a predefined type. So these come up under out-of-the-box families at the moment. So if I just launch here, which is the browser part. Right, so that's the H there, HH. So it's just basically a shape to match what needs to be. So again, as I said, if you're doing government jobs, you might have all different codes for different shapes. So okay, any more questions? Hang on, just drag my questions out. Let's make this a bit easier. You were playing with shapes in the steel families. What's playing shapes in the steel families? Selecting that, back that at family. If it's that section shape there, again, it's just a predefined shape for the steelwork that you can then use as part of your scheduling. How you use it would be up to you. Has there been any improvement in the graphical column schedule from Adrian? My understanding, no. So I had a little play before. I'll just create a quick graphical column schedule. We'll have a quick look on the run. May not actually have any columns. Draw some columns in. Good question why they're not even coming up. Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that. There's been no write-up or anything on the graphical column schedules. Okay, any more questions? Any questions about parts or anything that maybe no one's using at the moment? Parts are very good, so very handy indeed. And knowing now that you can actually apply reinforcement to it means that Autodesk is heading in that direction, heading more towards the shop detailing stage. No more questions before we finish off? Yes. Do the hidden lines options help out showing concrete stairs and wall elevations? Well, let's test that theory. So that's wall on that level 2. oops, structural discipline, or that answers your question. So no. But if I change that to be a different stair, let's change that, just double check monolithic. Helps if I drag it past. Sorry, Scott, doesn't look like it, no. Would be nice. Okay. Any changes regarding schedule grid lines? I go to my schedules. My understanding is no on that. It still looks pretty similar to me. Show hidden lines should work for stairs behind walls. They should, but they haven't. That was from Michael. So yeah. So Michael, unless you've got it to work, but from my end here, just using the standard template, doesn't look like it's working. So you're saying that, use the show hidden lines. So still not showing through. Set the wireframe first, okay. Still not showing through. Anyway, that's right. I'm sure there's going to be more improvements coming through. So Michael's saying with this under the view, show hidden lines should display hidden lines of individual model elements and details. So it's obviously being able to select the element and then show hidden lines. So that doesn't seem to be working on. Anyway, that's right. As they say in Revit, we can't win it all. Any further questions, just so we can finish off for the hour? Okay, guys, this has been recorded, so if you do have any staff members that did miss it, just need to contact back through work, through A2K, and they should be able to point you in the right direction to download it from a website. So hopefully it's been beneficial. Again, if I do find things that are coming along down the track, I'll be doing an additional webcast that some new features where people find out. As you imagine, it's pretty hard to work out all the ins and outs sometimes with new software. So anyway, thank you. Have a good day.